Hello and welcome to the North Metro SBDC programming.
Hello, welcome everyone. My name is Raul Lopez. I am the Assistant Director for North Metro SBDC. In case you haven't been acquainted with SBDCs before, Small Business Development Center, we provide free and low cost education, guidance, mentorship, and advising for small businesses. Small businesses are it's a bit of a misnomer because a little bit misleading because any business that's under 500 employees and up to $10 million revenue would be considered small businesses. So we cover quite a big range there. And just a couple things in the beginning here. So, we do free one-on-one advising. We have multiple different types of advisors, specialists. We have lead advisors. Now, in order to see a specialist, you have to have seen a lead advisor first, and then you can see a lead specialist. So we have Jay Ballenberger here today with us. He is a market research specialist advisor, and there will be an opportunity to schedule time with him. What I encourage you to do, if you haven't seen a lead advisor yet, I will drop the link to schedule a one-on-one with the lead advisor. And I will drop Jay's link as well. And we will also have a follow-up email where the recording, the slides, and all of that information, links to schedule, will be added as well. So if you don't get to that today, and sometimes things are a little all over the place, totally understand. So, but definitely schedule time. Once you get through this, you'll see the value and sort of the overwhelm of information that can come from these things. But what I want to know is I want to know a little bit about each of you. And if you could just in the chat drop three things, real simple. Number one, your first and last name. Two, your business name and the industry that you are in. If you don't have a business yet, just put no business yet. And three, the city and zip code of your business, especially the zip code, very important for us for reporting purposes in terms of how we get funded and how we can make things essentially free through our programming is through our grant funding. And knowing the zip code of your business is very helpful for that. So, and again, if you don't have a business, just put the city that you reside in or that you're thinking about in terms of your business. If you can't access the chat right now because you're driving or something like that, we have a small enough group. I think we can take a minute to unmute yourself and just share. Is anyone in that boat unable to access the chat? No? Okay, great. Doesn't sound like it. Cool. So I want to give Jay as much time as possible. So I'm going to hand it over to him and let him take it away.
Cool. Thank you, Raul. And thanks for having me today. And welcome, everyone. I have just a smaller laptop. I don't have like multiple screens, so you'll have to forgive me. I won't be able to always have my eyes on the chat, but I know Raul does a really great job of that, and he'll let me know if there's any questions along the way. Totally happy to answer things in the mix of the presentation, and we can keep it conversational, especially with a smaller group that can be really useful for everyone. Regardless, I do have a little time planned at the end. We can talk about some of these things. What we're doing today is continuing a market research series that I've been working on through the year. And so there's going to be a little section here that we'll go through that recaps a little bit where we've been. So it'll be a sort of a little whirlwind of the last 6 months or so of presentations. Actually, there have been 3 up till now. This is the 4th in the series of 8 total. There'll be some more that come along, and you're going to hear from me a lot talking about the process of doing research. And this very much is a process-oriented thing where there's these things sort of scaffold on top of each other over time. And so I'll explain that a little bit more. But today we're going to be continuing on with some competitive research. There are three really big areas of research. They are industry research, competitor research, and customer research. And there's all different little components. Every business needs to know different things. So teaching these things, I really keep it broad, but I also try to put in a lot of little details and show you the extent and the range of what we can find for information, what's useful to find, and many other things along the way. So do know though that to work one-on-one is really valuable, because some of these things can be really useful for one business and not as relevant for another. And so if we can spend a little time together, I can learn a little bit more from you. We can put some more customized plans in place for you. So let's get into this. I'll share a little bit about myself. I am in your shoes in terms of being a small business owner. I am new to being a business owner. I come to the world of entrepreneurship and small business ownership as a past librarian. And so I had worked in academic libraries for a number of years. And then I had the opportunity to move into a really interesting role at the Denver Public Library. I had been really interested in being in public libraries, and this role suited my um, background in educational. I was an instruction librarian. I taught a lot of college students how to do their first research papers and how to use a bigger academic library, and all sorts of things related to information literacy is the phrase they use in the library world. So anyways, I at Denver Public Library worked with hundreds of businesses to help them mostly gather resources about their industries and their competitors, and help them use all the tools that that library has available. And just so you know, we don't get too much into Denver Public Library tools today, but I'll be able to share some links that allow you to get library card and go to the business resources there, because we're really fortunate. They serve the entire state of Colorado. I know most of you will probably be on the Front Range, but even if you're on the West Slope or down around Durango, you can still access the Denver Public Library. So it's a really great resource. They also have great librarians that are there that I used to work with, who can help you with things as well. Um, so, I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn. That's a place where I'm trying to start building connections and meeting people. So if you're a LinkedIn person, would love for you to send either a request, or maybe I'll come find you and ask for a connection that way too. But I'd love to be able to share with you what I'm doing, and my email's there as well, if in case that is useful for you. All these slides are going to be shared with you as well, so you'll be able to get back to these. So the agenda for today is we'll do that quick recap, as I was mentioning, of the process that we're taking that brings us to this area of doing competitor research. And in fact, we did a little competitor research in the last webinar, but it was more related to finding competitors. And now we're going to be analyzing those that we found. So we're going to quick recap, and then we're going to get into the key questions that you need for evaluating competitors. And that's the main part of this lesson. I'm going to share with you a tool that I have created that you can use that makes it a lot easier and helps you organize yourself. And then, like I said, we can get into some questions near the end there. So if that sounds like a decent plan, these are the things I want you to get out of today's webinars. I want you to be able to analyze more effectively for strengths and weaknesses within your business, and for your competitors, of course. I want you to be able to identify where there are opportunities and things that your competitors maybe aren't doing, or for you to know what they are doing, so that you can find other ways to differentiate. And so that's a really important part of this. And then what this is all going to be leading to, and what the previous webinars have been leading us to, is preparing ourselves for the next phase, which is customer research. So again, this is kind of where we're going to go today, and hopefully those will be the things that you leave knowing a little bit more about. So this recap. We started identifying, kind of why, right? Why do we do all this stuff? Ultimately, my thinking about this is that we are trying to best articulate the assumptions that we have about our business idea. And we want to take those ideas that we have and those assumptions, and we want to test them in the real world. And that's where we're kind of going with the customer research side of things, where we can do what they call qualifiable research, right? Where you're talking to people, learning about their interests, their desires, how they see your business helping them, um, all that kind of stuff. So as you see, there's a lot of different reasons to do this, but a lot of it is about validating, understanding, so that you can make better decisions in your business. So you don't waste money, you don't waste time, and you don't waste effort. And you provide yourself as clear of a path forward for realizing the businesses that you're bringing into the world. So one thing about research that I think gets left out a lot, and I think it's just something from my background with libraries that I try to always keep in mind, is that like research are these three main things here, right? It's exploration, and it's us being objective and doing everything we can to identify what our potential biases are, or where we're thinking we want things to go, and stepping back and sort of being that fly on the wall a little bit, and understanding that we need to be objective so that we don't miss something really important. Um, it's a different thing to do research where you're just finding things that confirm your existing ideas versus doing research to uncover opportunities and things that you had not yet learned about and knew about. One big aspect of this is that it's very, yeah, psychological, and there's like ups and downs with it. And at the beginning of doing research, it does feel completely overwhelming, feels muddy, like you're in the fog. But as you do things, you just start seeing a path, and the fog clears, and things clear up, and it gets to be sort of a snowball effect, like a downhill. Yeah, it just feels like you're getting somewhere, and the information is sort of directing you to really good answers. And then, organizing our findings is like a huge part of it, and it's easy to get distracted with some of these things and put things in different places. So I talk a lot about organizing as well. So we'll kind of go through that a little bit more. The metrics to look for are always going to be a little different, but they tend to be these types of things in terms of industry research. At the higher elevation level, we want to understand what our market trends are, what's going on with the performance in the industry, and what trends and opportunities are arising for us to take advantage of. I had done some case studies using these two different areas. One of them was more of a service-oriented business, right? Like coaching, health, wellness coaching, specifically herbalist was just the idea that I was going with there. And then another one was a homebrew supply store, so more of a retail brick and mortar type of operation. So you all may be in one or other of those categories. I thought I gave a decent, rounded kind of overview of some examples. Today, you're going to see that most of the examples actually are for the homebrew supply store. Really, seeing these examples is best going to be your own business examples, but a little bit about how I do it is obviously important. But I wanted to point out too, this is a worksheet that I shared originally that helps you evaluate your industry. And these slides, again, are all linked, and Raul is going to set other resources with links to get to these. What'll happen is this is a Google form that will allow you to create a copy that you have full control over. So it's just going to be, it's going to force a copy, and you'll be able to edit them, and then collect the resources. It's not going to be connected to me at all anymore. So this is just another example of one of the case studies I did. When I took that Google form, I answered all the questions related to the industry research I did, And of course, using Google Forms, it puts it into a well-organized place. So again, that's part of that organizing phase that I was talking about. So don't worry about reading this carefully. It's more of just an overview of what capturing that information looks like, in this case for the wellness coach example. And then the other one was here for that homebrew supply store. So each column or each row is a different business that I analyzed, or sorry, a different report, an industry report that I analyzed for the different questions within the columns. So then we moved on in the last episode to finding your competitors. The big reasons for doing this obviously is to, inform our decision making, find opportunities, know what positions we might be able to take. And the biggest one that I've found with working with people is when you go and do some systematic research on your competitors. At first, people often try to avoid it because they don't want to run into the things that might tell them that their idea maybe isn't as great as they might have thought it was. But every business has a unique way and a unique perspective that they bring to these. So what I found is when people actually go to the trouble of doing this, they notice that the people they thought were the strongest and most well positioned have kinks in their armor, and there are gaps and things that they don't go after in the market. And so it's really, really important that we go through 5 to 8 different competitors, and you're going to start finding that it gives you this psychological boost. Again, it's a snowball effect where you start noticing opportunities and gaps. And so that is one of the big reasons I want to do that. And again, this is now going to prepare us for building questions and doing more of that qualifiable research and talking to potential customers about our ideas and getting their feedback about it. So again, that'll come a little bit later, but that is a big reason why we do this. And then um, we talked a little bit about the different types of competitors, direct versus indirect. Again, not a huge deal to go over this now. This was just a little chart that kind of differentiated them for my different types of businesses. The wellness coaching. I also had another slide for the homebrew supply store. And then we got into particular tools, right? So all sorts of different market research reports are going to help us understand what competitors are potentially doing, or again, the trends that are happening that we can then see whether our competitors are jumping on those trains or not. Of course, web searches are a huge place. I've got a lot of tricks that we can use to pull up really great reports just freely available on the open web. AI models, of course, if you haven't been using those yet, you probably have actually. So I would be surprised if people hadn't yet. There's some tricks and some things going on there though with AI models that leave a librarian like me to be a little skeptical. We can get into that at some point, but my main takeaway with that is don't let AI models like ChatGPT do the thinking for you. They hallucinate. They are not repositories of information. They're tested, they're trained through big data sets, but they haven't seen everything. And so what they do, they're predictive models. They basically will predict what they think something should be. Again, it really depends on the case that you're working on with them. They are incredibly useful. Obviously, I'm sure you've all found useful ways to use them, but please be careful that you're not asking it something that it's hallucinating information and then you're putting your livelihood on the line and going after something through something that was a prediction that one of these models made. We can, again, lot to benefit from them, but I have some ways that I like to use them that I think are safer, and so we can talk about that. Just directories, associations are really great when you get professional organizations um, who who specialize in your industry. They often will help you find other competitors, and also really great industry analyses. And then finally, library databases. There's a bunch of them. One that we talked about specifically was this one called Data Axle, which is a big library directory, or sorry, business directory and a customer directory. It's like the old school yellow pages and white pages, but it does a lot more, and you can really target both customers and competitors. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, here's a little screen grab, excuse me, of Data Axle, what it looks like. It's old school kind of database, but it's really powerful. And I've worked, again, like I said, with hundreds of businesses. Each time when I sit down with somebody to use this, we can find a really unique way to take advantage of it. So if you'd like to spend a little time looking at that, I'd be happy to have an appointment with you, and we could work through it a little bit. So let me take a breath. But that was the recap of kind of where we've been in this series. Raul, any chat questions or anything that I should be made aware of, or if there are any questions anybody want to bring up at the moment?
No chat questions at the moment.
Great. Okay, cool. Okay, so this is kind of the meat and potatoes of today's episode, and there's one of my other colleagues, I don't know, one of the other SBDCs, Scott, had originally given me this list of questions that he found to be really invaluable for using to look at other competitors to find these gaps. So that's my little hat tip to Scott for helping with those things. So let's get through these, and again, I'll show you the tool that I use with these. Some of these are going to be very obvious, but others might need a little explanation. So let's talk about them. So we're going to want to find those list of competitors. Like I said, you're going to have 5 to 8 of them. You may only need to stay on that lower range of 5 to analyze and to ask all of these questions. There's about 18 of them that I run through. So the first one being, what is this business's focus and this business's target? Usually that's pretty obvious. A website will typically tell you who they're targeting, and they want to, a good website wants to be clear about who their customer is, so that their customer can see themselves in working with that business. So it's usually a pretty obvious thing to extract from a website. The next is, how big is this business? That database that I was just talking about has records of many businesses. It doesn't have everyone, but in there, in each individual record for the businesses that appear in there, there are 2 things that can answer a question about how big this business is. They have annual sales volume, which is the same thing as revenue, basically. They're often estimated, but sometimes those businesses provide that information. So that's one way to kind of understand how big the business is. The other one would be to understand how many employees they have. And a combination of those 2 pieces of information can tell you a little bit about another question that's going to be in here about their profitability. But really, we just want to know, how big are they? And this can be very general. You could say they're a micro business, or they are a big business, right? So you could be general with these, but you want to be sort of consistent in how you evaluate them. The next big question is, where is this business located? Physically, where are they? Again, some of your businesses are going to be focused in a geographic area, and your customers are all going to be there. Others are going to be online businesses that can have customers around the country or around the world. But it's still important to know where they are located. And again, like I said, it'll be more relative to different businesses. So a lot of these are pretty simple things to answer. Now, where do they sell or operate is another big one. This is obviously something that a website will mention. Again, I'll show you my example momentarily too. But you'll see that if someone's sticking local or they're not doing online sales, you know, only offer for like walk-in type sales, those are the types of things you want to note. Or do they not sell and operate? And again, it's usually going to kind of answer itself, the question before, but I like to be really specific about that too. So articulate where it is they aren't selling, whether again, that's online they're not selling, or they're only selling online, so they're not selling in person, those types of things. Now, what do they sell? What do they do? Obviously, again, super simple thing, but again, we just need to articulate what it is exactly they sell. My example will be about the homebrew supply stores, and you'd be surprised at how much different things they can focus on. And so we'll get into that, but what do they sell or what do they do? And you heard it right. What do they not sell and what do they not do? So again, those tend to kind of coincide, but really separate them so that you can later on be more organized with your analysis. And that's going to really help you kind of, again, like I said, find that position and or find potential areas that are not being served at the moment. So further questions here. How do they price their services and their products? Do they do subscriptions? Do they just have, is it a retail store with one-off prices? Do they sell in bulk? There's so many different ways that businesses offer their services depending on their services or products and price them. So again, it's really going to depend, and you'll be surprised at how differently they do it. And again, it may be that you're not always looking for a gap in that as much as maybe ideas and trying to find benchmarks of other businesses, and or the standard way that that business sort of operates, right? Within those industries. And again, may be obvious, may not be as obvious, depending on your industry. How do they promote themselves? So this should be a pretty thorough look at where all they appear, right? So a lot of businesses, of course, are going to have websites, and obviously make note if they don't. Some may just be using social media, um, different avenues that are maybe where their customers are. Again, a B2B business, maybe over on LinkedIn, B2C type business, maybe on Instagram, maybe on Facebook. It really depends, again, on the industry, what the norms are. Do they promote themselves through newsletters, right? So there's so many different ways to do this. Billboards, bus stop ads, right? There's so many possibilities. Pay close attention to as many of them and find as many of them for each business that you analyze. How loyal are their customers? This starts getting into things that aren't going to always be as apparent up front, or maybe as apparent in the website copy that they have. But obviously a great place that many of you are probably familiar with are things like reviews, right? So Google reviews. There are ways that you might be able to employ, again, maybe an AI model, ChatGPT, to analyze, uh, reviews on a particular business. If they have many of them, if they have hundreds of them, it might be a great way that you could create a prompt to get kind of the overall feeling, and asking a prompt that gets into some questions related to loyalty, how many, of course, stars they're given, and all those different loyalty kind of related things. And it also might just be that you are familiar with your competitor businesses, and they've been around for a while. Um, Longevity is a sign of loyalty, obviously, right? So all those different kinds of factors, think of as many again as are pertinent and relevant to your business, and make note of them and be as consistent with the different competitors you're looking at. Now, again, this is where it gets even more difficult. You're not always going to understand, how well they are doing. This might take visiting a physical shop, right? And just kind of taking a look around and, um, grabbing a coffee and listening to other people and like hearing what's going on and watching people walk in and out of the door, let's say for a coffee shop or something. Um, Often, businesses that are doing really well may be featured in local news sources and they may be talked about in different ways. And so um, there are a lot of ways to figure out whether there's growth, decline, or stability. And again, making note as general or as detailed as you can. It's about the consistency of going through those different competitors. How is their profitability? And again, here's where it starts getting into some trickier things. Most of the businesses that we're probably going to be looking at as competitors are probably private businesses that have zero obligations to be sharing that type of information. But there are a number of ways that you can get some sense of those things. And again, one that I was mentioning earlier, this database, Data Axle, that shares a little bit about, like I said, annual revenue numbers, comparing those to employee numbers, are ways that you can start judging, margins that they might be making. Um, you know, and again, I think this also gets into maybe the longevity of a business. They may have spent enough time making enough, mistakes and reacting and changing that they've learned a thing or two. And so this may not be obvious in something that you can point, particular number at. But even the sense of their profitability and how well they're doing is something that you really want to be asking these about these competitors. Now, this is going to be getting a little more subjective, but that's perfectly fine too. What do you feel like they do well when you look at their website and you evaluate their website? When you go to their shop, what do you see happening that is doing, that it's well done, something that you would want to steal their idea of, right? And noticing between what's done well and what's done really well. Is it customer service that is unbelievable? Or is it, just the product? The product is unbelievable and you recommend it to other people as well. So finding those things that they do well and that they do really well and sort of differentiating between those is really important. And of course, what do they not do well? This is where you're going to start noticing things when you look at multiple businesses together. I was always surprised again when I sort of was chickening out for my own business, like, oh, I don't want to see that thing that's gonna, make me feel like I'm never gonna get to where someone else is at. But you start, again, like I said, you start noticing that there are gaps and there are things that they just don't do that well. Whether it's just about how they talk about their business um, or their products are not as good as they maybe used to be, that type of thing. Um, it's gonna be different for everyone, but again, you're gonna find some things, and the most that you can list, um, the more you can list, the better. Again, for finding those gaps and finding those opportunities. We're almost there. Stick with me here. Um, Obviously, that last question is going to lead to kind of understanding some of these weaknesses a little bit more and knowing if that's something that is in line with the vision that we have and that we can exploit one of those weaknesses and fill in a gap somewhere that may not exist already. So now what we're doing is we're really kind of looking at the overall scene and we are positioning ourselves a little bit more with these types of questions. They're getting they're getting to a little bit more meat of the the problems and the questions that we're trying to answer. But a very important question. What do they do better than us, and what can we do to compensate for that? This, as a new business, this kind of question is that they probably do a lot of things better because they're further along, right? Doesn't mean that it'll always be that way, but they may have had time to iterate and to do these things and to build systems and to build efficiencies and to build design work that's really impressive. They've got revenue that they can hire consultants to do other parts of their business and then do more. But again, as small businesses, we can get there with time. All this research is leading us forward with that path. Yeah, these established. So we just need to know, what can we do to compensate? That old saying of, what is it like? I know it in the music world, but it's like, good musicians kind of emulate and great musicians steal. Um, think about that. What great ideas can you steal from other people and kind of compensate for things that you're just not as far along with? This is, again, this was Scott's wording, the whole secret sauce part. What is it that makes them different? This is gonna be that value proposition that you tend to hear people talking about, the one thing that really sets them apart. If you can identify that, it's probably going to be pretty similar to the what they do very well question, but maybe just a different way to kind of wrap it all together. What is the thing that makes them tick the most and makes people come to them for their business? And then another big question that I just think is really helpful is, if they're a bigger business and they have postings that they have out there, can those postings tell us anything else about the direction? If they're hiring for a certain position that maybe seems like a new area, like, why is it that they're doing that? Like, what is over there, or what descriptions within the job posting tell you more about the business? So it's just, things that you can get your hands on. And these 18 questions, as you can tell, the first one that you go through with a business, it could take you a good half an hour, but it's one half an hour that is going to serve you really well. The second one might take you 25 minutes because you've kind of got a handle on what you're looking for. The next may take you 20 minutes. Even if it took you 30 minutes each, which might be a good way to do this, thinking about 2.5 hours of your life spent understanding your competitors is going to be incredibly valuable time going forward. And in fact, like I said at the beginning, I think about this as a process. It's not something that you're going to just do one time and quit and never do again. It's something that you're going to want to evaluate and go over through the lifetime of your business. And so what I like to think about with this is that the first time is that big climb, that big mountain like ascent that you don't know the path, you haven't been there before. But the next time you do it, you know where you should be taking breaks and where there's going to be a steep part to kind of prepare for. And the third time is going to be easier. And you don't need to go through all of that all the time. Basically, you're going to be learning so much that the next time you need to kind of go through it, you'll know which things to hit on and which not. So just kind of take that in mind when you do this. So those are the big questions that each one of your competitors you should be asking yourself about them. Now, this is going to be where you can organize yourself again. So what I want you to do with this is you can click directly on these links again, and we'll send the link separately, but the slide deck has live links within them. So you can come back, review these, and get back to all these. Again, if you've never had this or done this before, it's Google it's organized within the Google world. This is a Google form. You're going to see a little screen like that. There's the little use template link in the top left or top right, sorry. And if you click on that, you are then going to be brought into a newly editable form that is living on in your Google space. So again, it's not going to be tied to me at all. You can go through those questions. If some are not relevant to you, you can edit them out. If you think of questions along the way, which you're bound to do for your business, you can add more to it. So just want you to know, edit these as much as you can for yourself and your businesses. I'd actually be really surprised if all 18 of those questions were the only ones you used. As you do one of these, you're going to probably think of some questions that are going to be valuable. So go with it, change them as much as you need. You'll then publish that form. And again, this is mostly just for those of you who have not used Google Forms before, but you'll hit the publish button there. It's going to allow you then to be in a place where you can see your questions and edit them. You can see your responses and you can change other settings. But the link that I'm pointing to there with the arrow is a copy responder link. So what you'll do is click on that, get that link, throw it in another browser, paste it in the browser, and now you're going to have an answerable version of these forms. And this is where you're going to go to one website or thinking about one competitor, and you're just going to start going through and answering those questions related to it. It's as simple as that. You'll then submit the form at the end, and you'll see I threw some answers in. Mine is showing 2 responses because I took 2 different, in this case, homebrew supply stores, analyzed them. And you can see the responses in this form like this. You can see under the second box there, I guess, competitor name, there's Quirky Homebrew, which these are real homebrew stores in the Denver area, and Tom's Brew Shop. And so I started with those. Now, the better way to view these is through viewing it as a spreadsheet. And so that's what that link there is pointing to, which brings you to this. So again, this is where once you get 5 to 8 of these, I just did the 2 for this example, you now can look at it all in one place and you can really start kind of analyzing. This is probably going to be something, well, in my opinion, the way I experienced it when I did my business and what I've noticed with other people is you're kind of keeping tabs along the way. This is just a place that you can come back to and probably visit later down the road, but you're going to be noticing those gaps that exist as you go one competitor to the next. But it's kind of hard to read this here, but if you look under it's the 4th column, the one that says, what is this business's focus target? You can see that each one of them already is doing different things. And in fact, the second one there, Quirky Homebrew, they were getting into things like, mushroom and like mushroom growing and kombucha and cider and mead and wine in a way that I wasn't seeing Tom's Brew Shop. And so, you just see all these differences. Tom's Brew Shop was focusing a lot on education and workshops, whereas Quirky's wasn't. But Quirky's does a bunch of online sales around the country, whereas Tom's does not. So those are the kinds of things you're going to be seeing. Those are where the gaps are going to exist. Once you see enough of them, you are going to have many different options in many different places where you can position yourself to take advantage of those things, and to offer something that isn't offered to other, potential clients and customers in your area or even around the country. So that is most of what I kind of wanted to get to today. So I apologize for kind of those text-heavy questions. I know it's not the most enthralling thing, but it's really important to think about and to know that, okay, these are the questions I need to ask, right? And again, like I said, you'll probably run into some others. Um, Before I, ask for questions and things, let me show you a couple things. So I've got some next steps here that you can think about just as a reminder. Again, running 5 to 8 competitors through that analysis form, and then stepping back and analyzing those results. I think you're going to find that you'll have plenty of opportunities that you could take advantage of. What we want to optimize is finding the ones that take the least amount of effort on our part to yield the highest, monetary results, obviously, and or work with the type of people that we care to work with the most, right? I think that's the beauty of starting a small business, is that we get to choose who we get to work with. And yeah, if you can focus on those people that give you energy, it's going to be more sustainable, obviously, through the long haul. And so anyways, those little action steps there, understanding, which positions you might be able to, again, exploit and take advantage of for the vision that you hold for your business. Like I said, this is tough to kind of give generalized overviews for, so I'd love to be able to work with you individually. Please feel free to schedule a time. As Raul said, we're going to send links. There's 2 particular links. If you have not yet worked with an SBDC advisor, there will be a process of going through one of our lead advisors, which is really great because they can give you the lay of the land of all the different resources, different tips on funding opportunities that are available at the federal level and at the state level, more locally. And then they can kind of give you a plan to focus for in particular actions with things. And again, I come at this as more of a specialist, so you'll need to go through one of our leads first, and then I'd be happy to with you and love to hear more and talk more about what what plan of action we could put in place for your business. The next series, which we're going to start getting into customers, and I'll show you a little bit about what the learning objectives are for that webinar. Put it on your calendars now, is on July 16th, again at noon, on a Wednesday. So about 6-ish weeks or so from now. And I'd love to see you there, and we can kind of continue on with this series. And so here's a little overview of what we'll be talking about. We're going to be using different tools to analyze customers demographically and psychographically, understanding their desires. So there's really cool tools out there, both at the library and freely available, that I want to be able to show you. And a lot of this upfront work is going to be pointing us to certain demographics of customers. So it's really, really important that we talk, or that you think about your industry and your competitors, so that we can move into the customer segment of things. Because your competitor research is going to tell you who they're focusing on, who their customers are. And if someone's not being targeted, again, that's another opportunity. So want to keep those things in mind. So yeah, that is what's coming up. And then I think my last thing is just to see if you all have any questions. And I always throw so much out at people, they need time to like kind of think through it and just kind of sit with it. So I totally understand if you don't. But if anybody does, feel free to unmute and or drop anything in the chat. And happy to see what I can help you answer.
Thank you, Jay. That was amazing. What questions do you all have? Competitors, even if outside the scope of that, it says there's been a lot of things that Jay has touched on in the past. Love to get the slides. Yes, we will provide slides and the recording and various links that Jay has available, resources. And reminder, we will also provide the link for scheduling time with the one-on-one advisor for free. If you have never done one-on-one advising with SBDC, we will have the link to schedule that lead advisor first. And then if you would like to schedule time with Jay, the link will be there as well to schedule time with him. You can schedule both at the same time. Just make sure you see the lead advisor before you see Jay. That's all. No questions from Helena. Feel better equipped to do the work. Amarilis, you haven't and you would love to. That's awesome. We'll send that out. This is also great, Jay. Thank you. Yes, you are right. I prefer not to look at my competitors for fear of not liking what I find. Yeah.
You're not alone.
Any thoughts on that, Jay? Like that mindset?
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's like I said, you're right to feel that way, and you're not alone. And I think I think it's the natural thing to initially feel. But you're going to notice again, like I said, that it's not as unpenetrable as you might originally think. If anything, it's going to give you, again, like I said, the great ideas that you admire from those people that are your competitors. And those are things to keep in mind as well. Like, what are they doing well, right? And that's totally fine. But my prediction is that if you, like I said, sort of be a fly on the wall, try to be very objective, don't bring emotions into it, just let it kind of, be a scientist, right? And observe and put your thoughts down on paper. What I'm almost certain will happen is after you, I'm a big proponent of doing that work and stepping away. Maybe step away for one day, for a week or something. Let your subconscious kind of think through things, do totally different things. Work on other parts of your business. And your mind is probably going to sleuth its way into some different gaps that you didn't originally see or think about. But the point is doing that work. You have to think like this is not common knowledge, right? When we do this, especially for people who don't go through business school. I'm not a MBA. I didn't go to business school. I have a totally different background. This isn't always taught to us. And so you have to think about, are they doing all of this work? And my question or my answer, that'd probably be a great study. I should go do a graduate program or something and figure that out. But I suspect that it's not a very high number of people that go through a process like this. I think people tend to wing it a little bit more. If they're lucky enough to keep staying in business and have a good thing going, they iterate no matter what over time, and they're learning and they're changing. So for you to do this kind of work, I think you're probably doing more than, I would say, 50, 60, maybe 75% of the people that do start a business. So do it, allow it to happen. And I'm willing to bet, and I would love to hear back from you actually, if you do that, what you did find, and if it did make you feel like kind of a snowball effect, like, okay, it's not as crazy as I thought. And there are these things that they don't do particularly well that I could take advantage of. So that's the experience I've felt, and again, be curious to see how it works for you.
Yeah, that's great, Jay. And one thing on the fear idea is because it holds so many entrepreneurs back. We're very emotional, often very momentum based, and if we're not in the zone, feeling excited about something, we can get stuck easily. And then you're all over the place because you're like in your head or whatnot. One of the best things to do to get out of that is just break it down and say like, oh, what's the first step that I can do that I'm not afraid of? Are you
Right.
are you okay with looking at your competitors' websites? Just going to their website and just like, oh, that's a cool picture. If that doesn't scare you, just start there, and then you can snowball. The other one is mentorship, is guidance, support. I cannot stress enough the importance of getting with an advisor. If you've never done advising, first step after this is to schedule an appointment with an advisor. If you've never done it with the lead advisor, and then secondarily with Jay, so you can start getting the market research stuff going. There is a question. Mimi is asking,
Yeah.
I wasn't clear how you suggest going about finding your competitors. I asked ChatGPT, who gave me 8 competitors in my industry and area. Shall I answer your question on these 8 given?
Yeah, great question. And you're right. The last webinar that we did about a month and a half ago was where we talked more about finding those competitors. And so there's a number of ways to do that, Mimi. Again, depending on your industry, um, it's probably likely that, a question like that to ChatGPT, like you said, in your industry and in your area, is going to be pretty decent. There's other ways, and there's also just doing like a Google Maps search would be an interesting way to try. If you don't mind, would you be willing to share what I don't remember seeing which industry areas. I have to go back and look
I'm in
here,
real
but
estate, Jay.
oh, right. Okay, great. Yes. Okay. So real estate, is going to be one where you're going to find a lot of competitors. So you might you might ask yourself a few more questions about the exact type of real estate. Again, your area may be have a lot to do with with the competitors most likely to be, yeah, competing in the same area. But yeah, I think for you, that's going to be something that's just a little bit more of a ubiquitous type of industry that there probably be quite a few of. And ChatGPT would probably be a good one. I would do some just straight Google searches for them, because the thing with Google is that there's the whole SEO part of things, which is also happening with AI. But but it might be interesting just to see who are on the first page, right, of the keywords that you put in for real estate agents in your area, and make sure that maybe cross examine the ChatGPT answers with a Google search. So yeah, you might be doing a little competitor analysis research, which again is, you're going to sort of be finding the 5 to 8 competitors that you think seem most likely to be your competitors, and then running them through those questions. Exactly. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, filtering it down. That's a tough one with so
It
many.
it
I
is, yeah, and
I owned a gym, and where I was at, there was 32 gyms in a mile radius, and it was like,
yeah,
what do I pick? Well, then I sort of what Jay is talking about. I started going, okay, well, we're not CrossFit, but we do group training. Okay, so CrossFit's kind of a competitor, right? It's a Crunch Gym or 24-hour fitness. They're just big box gym. Oh, they're nothing like us. They just have people memberships that come in and people work out. We don't have that. So it was like we have personal training, we have group training, and it was trying to find like those more similar ones for us to compare ourselves to, right?
yep, yep.
Any other questions so far for Jay? Okay, if there's no other questions, we'll call it here. And again, Jay, thank you so much. That was amazing. And
Pleasure.
I will be following up with an email with the recording links and whatnot. Definitely schedule time with Jay, and let's get you in there and help you out. And if you have any questions for me, just reach back out through that email. Y'all take care.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night. Bye bye.